We have training on that. We deal with those type of situations all the time. You can have the person if a person has a weapon on them and their hands are on the steering wheel, how am I going to shoot you?
Right.
How am I going to shoot you if you see both of my hands? They never even had to pull him out of the car. Someone mentioned a concealed carry.
Yeah.
If you have a concealed carry, they teach us about dealing with people who have a concealed carry. Why do I need to take the gun from you if it's your gun and you have a concealed carry and you're not a threat to me?
Right.
He was not a threat to them if he's sitting in the car and his weapon is on his hip and his hands are on the steering wheel and they're writing him a citation. He didn't pull the gun out and point it. Now, that's a completely different scenario.
Right, yes.
We deal with that in a different way, but he was not a threat to them. And those situations where the person's not a threat to the officer and the officer jumped the gun. I hate to use that term, but that has happened. And unfortunately, in that incident, I put fault and blame on those officers for mishandling that situation.
I thank you for being candid, brother.
It's the truth.
Yes.
It is the truth.
So
those officers mishandled that situation.
So with Tyree Nichols, and this is only what I've seen, from the footage, it also seemed really excessive and weird. It was like that they jump out of the car.
Hella excessive.
Yeah. He's not even he's like, what's happening? I just want to go home. And it was just like there was no converse from what I saw, but I don't know what could have led up to that. They jump out of the car, they run up to him, and then they
with guns drawn,
pulling him out of the car.
Right.
And then according to media reports, the videos around did not even show him speeding, which is allegedly what happened. I'm still not sure if there wasn't something personal and something came out in media and then they kind of squashed that. I don't know what was going on.
I don't think they ever brought it up. No one's ever talked about it.
Even the personal thing?
Yeah, what happened before that?
Yeah, and then the medics who arrived did nothing. So can you speak to that at all, or what was going on there? Because that seemed real wild.
You brought up a good word that I want to address. You said personal. Let's not think for 2 seconds that policing cannot become personal. It is. We are human beings. We are not flawless. We are not impeccable. We're not omnipotent. And I don't know what happened. Haran brought that. I don't know what
you just use a big word. I'm Jamaican.
Keith is dropping.
You just dropped a big word, and I'm Jamaican, so you're gonna have to.
Omnipotent is all seeing.
Okay.
All seeing.
Okay.
We don't know what happened prior to that interaction that he had, regardless of what happened prior to that. No one deserves to be snatched out of a car. They don't teach us that. They don't teach us go up to the car, pull the person out. Now, has that happened? Yes, it has. Has it happened because the person refused to get out of a car and that was the last resort that the officer had? It has happened before. And we're talking about specifically this situation. Exercise some calm, exercise some restraint, exercise some professional-ism. Those officers, in my opinion, and I haven't even seen the video, I'm just hearing about this. My own officers have told me about what happened with that situation. And it sounded extremely personal. It sounded like it was excessive. It sounded like the officers had a grudge on their shoulder before they even got to the scene. And their interaction with him was negative from the very onset.
They were hitting dude when he had his handcuffed behind his back.
But initially, when they pulled him out, he was the one trying to de-escalate the situation. He was like,
I'm just trying to get home.
Yeah, no, but he was like, calm down. He's like, what do you want me to do? Like, it was like he was the officer and they were the thugs, and he was trying to calm them down.
Right. Andre, do you ever watch any of the videos?
No. I do watch because I show in my roll call training, I do show this particular, I'll be honest, guys, I've seen so much bad
It's part of the
videos.
Training, right?
No. I've seen so much bad. I get tired of it. Yeah. I'm exhausted from it. I get exhausted from reading the headlines of this happening because I know what it means to me. I know what it means for my department. When George Floyd happened, and I'm sorry to keep, but it's something we all know about. When George Floyd happened, it affected my department in the sense of our community, and our officers were put on 12-hour shifts with no days off. We didn't do anything in to George Floyd.
Almost like a high alert, right?
It's very much so high alert, and it's a trickle-down effect of what happens in California. I brought this up earlier. What happens in California can affect what happens in Washington, D.C. to our officers and to our department. Our officers work 10-hour shifts as it is. They don't want to work 12-hour shifts. They enjoy their days off. They don't want to spend time away from their families, or even if they don't have, they just want their time to that. They don't want to be working excessive hours because of something that happened in another state, another city that had absolutely nothing to do with them, but because of the media, because of the volume, because of the propensity of violence that could happen in our city, we are now on high alert. We are now. So when things like that happen, we're not happy about it either, for personal reasons and also for professional reasons, because it makes us all look bad, because they look at the police department that did that and they look at us and they say, okay, you guys are going to do the same thing.
Stereotype.
So,
it's very much so a stereotype.
Tanya?
So I have a question. I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about the Capitol riots.
Mm-hmm.
So I know quite a few officers. Don't ask me why, but that's a whole different ball game. But anyway,
And gentlemen, it sounds like.
but anyway, so I do note that a lot of officers they work long hours.
Yeah.
And when things arise, such as these types of things, you do have to work without days off, etc. And I don't know any specifics, but I feel, this is coming from me, Tanya, that one, y'all don't get paid enough. Two, I don't know how much leave you guys get, but I am endorsing, I'm saying this to the mayor guy, whatever his name is. What did you say his name was? I forgot his name.
Chief Conti.
Yeah, him.
Boy, it's the mayor.
That you might need a little bit more leave, and one of the reasons I'm saying that is just like you really just touched on it. You just said it, that when these things happen, that it affects you too on a personal and a professional level. Yeah. And I understand that for this time period, you might have to work 12 hours or be back up for one of these other policing departments, and that's fine. But you also should get some sort of reprieve for it, because you need, just like me in my job, I need a mental health break for whatever reason. You know what I mean? We all need it as humans.
That is admirable.
And the fact that
He's like admirable.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
it ain't gonna happen.
But I'm listening to him speak, and he's talking about, he's on a high anxiety job. I don't know how you worded it, but you said every time you go into a call, it's a situation. So that already gives you anxiety. It's a situation. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how many people you may need to help you assist this. You don't know who you're dealing with, what their mental issue is, or if they're on drugs, or if it's something that you can de-escalate by yourself, or do you need a team of people? Do you need specialized team of people? Mm-hmm. So you always have all these, you have a lot of things, and then you have to do all this assessment within 30 seconds to 2 minutes of upon arrival, right?
Yep.
So, and then you have to interact with all these different people who all are telling you 5 different stories of the same thing that happened, and you're trying to assess what's truthful, what's real, what's not real, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that, Mr. Conti, if you can see this, that you guys should, one, I think you should all have maybe like once a year, I don't know if you do this or not, it's just me being me, have a therapy session, because this right here, our podcast, is my free therapy. So, and it's free, and it's great therapy. Even though we talk about things that may not necessarily affect me personally, I'm able to relieve stress in other ways. Yeah. So, one, you should have some way to relieve your stress and give them some extra days off, man. I mean, like, they have a high stress anxiety. Help them out. Mayor Muriel Bowser. Don't make me call your name out, girl.
I'm a hashtag.
Hashtag them.
Let me jump in there with that. We do have therapy that's available to us. Our department has what's called a MEP program. It's employee, again, an acronym. It escapes me what but it's basically free therapy. It's if the officer is involved in something, a shooting, or just needs counseling or therapy, you can do it for family. You could do it for husband, wife. So they do afford that to us.
Okay, good.
The other thing is, that's the job.
Yeah.
Everything you just said, we know going into it that's the job.
But I get a month off a year. Right. I get 4 weeks.
We do get leave. We do
get. But you probably need more leave than I need.
He's on paternity leave right now. Don't be.
Yeah, but
that's right, because he's a new dad.
But Gabby has a question, but I'm gonna I understand where he's coming from. That's what you sign up for.
You do.
That's what you sign up for.
I will. Let me tell this very, very, very quick story. Most people, when they talk about police officers and it's a calling, it's a this, it's a that. Most sane people do not do what we do. No. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. It takes a special person to do what we do. And I use this example. I tell this story all the time. If someone said, hey, there's a guy down there and it's dark, it's 10 o'clock at night. He's down there, he's got a gun. Most people would go the other way.
Oh, yeah.
We're crazy enough to go down there and look
like firemen.
Yeah. You cannot pay someone to do that. You cannot pay a sane person enough money when you talked about, salary and stuff. But we know going into it, we may have to go down there to that dark alley and go look for that person with the gun because that's what you signed up for.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean we want to get shot. That doesn't mean we want to shoot someone. It doesn't mean it just means that going into this job that there will be dangerous situations. You mentioned being scared. That healthy fear the healthy fear is what, do you go running into that alley or do you tactically make your way down that alley so that you don't get shot or you don't have to be in a situation where you're forced to shoot someone? That's where the training comes into play.
Yep,
So,
and that's how, and Gabby has a question, but that's how when you see SWAT clearing a room, they don't run in.
No.
They cut the corners.
All those guys do is train.
Exactly. So, Gabby, I just saw the question. I'm gonna say 14. You 14, girl? Oh, Lord have mercy. Ask your question.
Go ahead.
Hold on. My question was, do you sometimes have like misaligning opinions on like situations, like for example George Floyd, because you are black but you're also an officer?
That's a great question.
Great
What?
question.
That's my niece.
14,
That's my niece.
Boom.
That's my
14
niece.
years old. Great
Yeah.
question, Gabby.
So
Calm down. That ain't you, bro.
Hey, bro, that's all me.
we kind of touched on this earlier, and I don't think we addressed it fully, or I didn't address it, with being a black man as well as being a police officer or being a black police officer. And yeah, it hurts me when I see a black man being hurt or loses his life at the hands of law enforcement. But I also look at it as what took place for that to happen. I'm very proud to be black. I'm not going to escape my blackness ever. I was born black, I'm going to die black.
Same.
But yeah, when those situations occur, the law enforcement side of me looks at it, but then the black man side of me looks at it. But I understand the situation more because of my law enforcement background. I don't look at it, my eyes and the way my view, as well as everyone has their view of how they look at situations. My view from a law enforcement standpoint is, okay, this happened, so that's why this happened. It's not these unanswered questions as, man, there they go again, killing us, doing this. That I don't think like that, because I understand a lot of these situations better than, I don't want to say the common man, but I understand.
Well, we're only getting the media
filter,
part.
and my filter and my view are a little bit different from everyone else's. So.
Like
All right,
you
so-
better understanding the regular civilian.
Yeah, and I try to be objective as well. Like, I don't just look at it from a law enforcement. I try to look at it as a neutral party, because a lot of situations we go into, we are therapists. We are there trying to diffuse situations. We get a husband and a wife. We have to listen to both sides of the story. We have to remain neutral. So I try to remain neutral, even with incidents of law enforcement where it results in death or it results in serious. I try to. I don't go into, oh yeah, he fucked up. This dude, he deserved to get his ass, or this dude, he deserved to die. No one deserves to die.
Yeah.
Not even
Right.
no. I don't care how bad the person. No one deserves to die at the hands of the police or another person for that matter.
Right.
But I do try to look at it from a neutral standpoint, but at the same time, I can't take off my law enforcement vision and say, because I like I said, I have a little bit more in depth. I'm like, okay, this probably happened, or this is the facts of the situation, and I can read or Google just like anybody else can. But I look at it. I try to remain neutral. Like, I know I'm kind of babbling a little bit, but I try to remain neutral as a black man, but I can't escape the fact that I'm law enforcement as well. And I'm not saying that I'm biased toward, they're always right. No, they're not always right. Police are not always right. But police are not always wrong either. So
Well, sorry, because you used to say this to me sometimes, like, you guys sometimes have like a split second to have a reaction, right? So
Absolutely.
it's easy for me to be armchair warrior, like everybody's doing everything wrong when I'm not in the
shoulda done this.
situation.
keyboard warrior.
Yeah, keyboard warrior, right?
Yeah.
I'm not there to have to make that call right in that moment.
That's where
you've
where
talked about that with me a
That's
lot.
where the training comes in, and we do that now. And I have said this to my officers in my roll call. We are sitting here in the comfort and safety of our roll call, watching. We have a big TV monitor, it's big flat screen TV. So we'll sit there and we'll watch it, and we can. And I say, what would you have done in this situation? What would you have done differently? And I said, guys, and this is at the end of watching it. I say, it's easy for us to sit here and say, "Oh, I would have did that.
Oh, yeah.
Or I would have
Monday
did
morning
this." I
quarterback.
say you don't
True.
know exactly what you would have done because you were not in that situation. But I want you to think about what you would. I want to get them thinking. I want them to think if they've got someone not cooperating, how are you going to handle it? If you've got someone having a mental health episode, how are you going to handle it? If you've got a guy high on PCP, how are you going to handle it? Are you going to do it differently than what these officers do, or is it going to result? Sometimes there is no. You got a man with a gun. He's pointing the gun at you. There's only one outcome.
Yeah.
There's only one. He's either going to shoot you or you're going to shoot him.
Your life or his life.
And sometimes those are situations that happen. And I tell them you need to be ready. You need to be tactical. So
Go ahead, quick.
No, I was just going to say, it was very interesting you said that. Kind of same thing. Remember, like talking about rooms clearing, like this is stuff I kind of know.
Yeah, military, same thing.
You know, like when we train on that, you know, you don't just kick in the door and shoot everything in sight. You know, there's a hostage, there's tango terrorist, there's whatever it is. You're working on these things, but we have rules of engagement, right?
Yeah.
These guys, we can't. You don't want to hear officers talking about, well, these are my rules of engagement, because that's, they're protecting the serve. That's their first, the job they're tasked to do, right? So that Monday morning quarterback, that armchair quarterbacking thing, that split second decision making process, like when you look at through the lens of that Monday morning quarterback thing, when you have that half a second to make that choice, that decision the day before, it's so hard, so difficult. You don't want to play that back. You don't want to see that replay over and over again.
So it's interesting that you brought up the protect and serve, because I'm going to talk about another one of our not guests, but one of our podcasters that are on the Real Energy podcast. Stephanie texted me this morning because she wanted this questions. Our Stephanie, yeah. So she said the slogan "Protect and Serve" is referring to the Constitution or citizens. First part of the question. Why aren't there more community policing programs where police get to know the residents rather than harassing? I think you said this. It's about funding and stuff like that. So you've already addressed that part. So
I'll readdress it and say and I hate to say it, but it's just the truth. It's funding and manpower.
Yeah.
We would love to be more involved in the community and what goes on in community, and we are. Don't get me wrong. Don't think it's all, arresting people and beating up mental health. It's not all that. We do a lot for the community, and we do have programs, and we do have division. We have just very quickly, every Halloween my district puts on a haunted house. It's built, constructed. They give out candy. The officers are in character. That's our community outreach program, and we have that in every district. Every district has, and not just. I'm at the first district substation. We have that at the first district, the second. Every district has that. So we are involved in the community. It's just, it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult to get the funding for that. It's extremely difficult because those officers who are in those programs, they're not in patrol. So if you take officers out of patrol and you put them in community outreach, you have less officers in patrol. If you
So
take
Halloween's the time for me to go raise some houses.
So wouldn't it be?
No, they're always dedicated to community outreach. I'm just saying that manpower.
Wouldn't it be better? And I'm gonna ask her more first part of that her question, but just as a suggestion, and you can't answer this, and this is to the powers to be. I would think that cadets in the they would be best to do that type of.
They're involved. When I was a police cadet, I was assigned. My first assignment was to the 3rd district, and I was in. Back then, they called it. The acronyms have changed over the years, over 30 years. I want to say it was the community something, but it was cadets, police cadets. That's exactly what I did. We set up cones on the street. We would block off the street. We'd have block parties. Have the kids out there in the summertime, fire hydrants. We bring in, balloons. We bring in a cotton candy machine. We bring in they still do that. Not as much as they used to, but they still do stuff like that.
What does and first part of Stephanie's question, what does in your opinion, what does it mean to protect and serve, and what are you protecting? Are you protecting the citizens or the Constitution?
So what does protect and serve mean to me? Protect and serve is a slogan. It is a catchphrase that has been thrown around since policing started. we don't have that on our cars. You see that in movies. I want to say LAPD has that on their cars, protect and serve. So that's where that term came from. We don't have that on our cars. Through the different police chiefs that we've had, they've put different little writings and different little slogans on our right now. Our slogan is excellence is transferable. That's something someone smarter than me came up with.
I like it. I like it.
But the slogans have changed based on the climate of policing or the genre or the whoever the chief is at that time. To answer the question, what does protect and serve to mean to me? It means protect and serve the citizens of the community that you're policing in. My first duty as a police officer is, and I'm being honest here, is to protect my officers. My officers are my first priority, and I'm not saying that citizens aren't important, but if my officers aren't taken care of, they can't take care of the citizens. So they serve the citizens, but I need to make sure, hey, did he get enough sleep? Do I need to put him with someone else because he's having a bad day, or do I need to send him home or send her home because she's just not feeling it today? Mm-hmm. That's my first priority, is to protect and serve my officers. Protect and serve the community. It means just what it means. Protect them and serve them, and whatever it is that they need, and they need a lot. Trust me. Like I said, the calls we get, you would laugh at some of the stuff that we have to respond to.
So we're gonna wind down the podcast in a little bit, but I want to go around the room and everybody ask their final questions that they have, right? My final question, I think you've touched on this, but I kind of want you to dive into it a little bit more. So the narrative is told that to the public is to stay calm and respect the police when the police are the ones not being calm and escalating the situation. So even if I am, even if I'm being emotional, you pull me over or you have an interaction with me and I'm being emotional.
Okay. Erratic.
I am being erratic. I'm showing erratic behavior.
Okay.
Does the police want to match that level of emotion?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We are not going to match your emotional state. We're supposed to diffuse your emotional state. Like that just makes the situation volatile. If you're upset and I'm upset, how are we going to get any peace? I've been on the scenes of things. Again, stories. I'll tell a quick story. I had a domestic violence situation where there was a guy. He beat on his girlfriend. Get there, he's 6'4", bigger than me, swole, ready to go, and I have like 3 officers on the scene with me, and I start talking to him, and he's no, and I have this. I'm pretty proud to say this. I have this very calm, reserved disposition about myself, and I've been on the scenes of things where people are yelling, and I'm talking to them like this. And I'm like, why are you yelling? Well, I'm not yelling at you. Why are you yelling? And it actually brings them down. So it's the training, it's the experience, it's the how you deal with the situation. But I've had the opposite where I've tried to be calm. And then it's like, look, motherfucker, we gonna do it this way because you're not listening to what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So I have had to go there. I do not like to yell. I don't like to raise my voice. But as a police officer, yes, you do have to take control of the situation. But taking control of the situation doesn't always mean matching their level of emotional state. Sometimes taking control of the situation is just diffusing it and bringing them down. And calming the situation. And some situations cannot be calmed down. Some people, if they're under the influence, if they have a mental health issue, they cannot be brought down. So you just have to deal with every situation as it comes. But to answer your question, no, you do not want to match fire with fire. You don't want to go level 10 if they're at level 10. You want to bring them down to level 2, and we can all walk away from this shaking hands and smiling and be like, have a nice day. That type of stuff.
Second part of that question, and
Sure.
I'll move it on to Keith, and we'll go around
Yeah,
the room.
sure.
So second part, selection, right? Because you have said that being a fireman, being a policeman, being a paratrooper, jumping out of planes, it takes a special breed of person.
Absolutely.
So when you are when the police department, when the Army, I know the Army does psychological tests, right? When you first sign up.
Yeah. Let's go. Can you pull this trigger?
All right. So are there psychological tests or questions on an interview that might show someone's bias?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do. We do an extensive psychiatric evaluation before they hire. I haven't gone through the hiring process, obviously, in a very long time. I came in as a cadet, so I didn't have to go through as much screening because the door was already open for me. I just kind of had to walk in and say, yes, I want to do this for real. I don't want to say cadets aren't. They're cadets. They're not police officers. So for my path, it was a little easier, but for someone who has graduated college, which is another requirement now for the police department, you have to have a degree. They will have to do extensive recruiting testing. Like the recruitment process is involving physical, mental, educate. Like you need to pass tests, all that type of stuff in order to come on as a police department, as
Gotcha.
a police officer. Yes,
Keith.
Sir. Yes, sir. No, I first of all, I just want to say thank you for
yeah, it's been great.
Candid. I really appreciate it. I really do, because a lot of this stuff that I felt like I hadn't had a chance to get off my chest or ask, especially from a fellow black man who's also an officer. It's been really good to have. My thing was I wanted to ask real quick, because we touched back on something, was that you talked about accountability, right, on citizens cooperating and listening and cooperating.
Yeah.
I always want to. Obviously, you can't. I wouldn't even want you to remotely get into departmental policies or anything like that. But what is something you might want to impart to? Hopefully, there's other fellow officers listening or will listen. Right. What is something that you can impart to them on their accountability part? Kind of piggyback on what Patrick's saying. You all are humans.
Absolutely.
Totally understand. You guys come out the house, wifey might have made soggy eggs or whatever it may be where you're angry, right? Or you're whatever it may be. And what is something you might want to impart to them that's saying, don't bring that into work. Don't take that on the system. Maybe they have an implicit bias from parental units or whatever it may be.
It's funny you say those two. I like that you use the word accountability, because that is a two-way street. It's not just for the citizens that are having these interactions, be it positive or be it negative, with police officers, but a police officer has to be accountable as well. We are human beings. We do leave the house with a bad attitude, but you have to shut that off. And I'm not saying we're robots. We do bring these emotions to work with us, but we do know coming into work, you have a job to do.
Right.
Like, you cannot go on the street thinking about, well, damn, my wife did this, or my husband did this, or my significant other did. You have to be focused, because we don't have the luxury of, if you make a mistake, well, we'll just
come back tomorrow. Right?
We'll just send an email and we'll send someone could die if you make a mistake as a police officer. That mistake could be you losing your life.
Right.
That could be a citizen losing their life.
Right.
Your partner losing their life, because you're not focusing. You don't have your head in, I don't want to say the game, because it's not a game, but you don't have your head on, and you're not focused on the task at hand. It's my job as a sergeant to assess them. And I don't mean it in the sense that I'm a psychologist or I'm a therapist, but I can read the room. I know my officers, and your personnel. They know me. They know they can come to me if they need something. But it's my job in roll call to see, so-and-so is usually talking a lot. He's always the first one, but he's sitting there pretty quiet today. Maybe I need to go check on him.
Right.
It's my job as a supervisor to assess them and make sure that they're ready. And like I said, I try to send them out, in a positive way. Like, hey, guys, be safe. Let's do this today. Let's come back in one piece. And while I'm talking about that, I forgot to say something. I used to say to them, hey, be careful out there. This old Hill Street Blues.
I'm just about to say that.
I say that
Hill
every
Street
time,
Blues.
but I mean that. I literally mean that. Be careful out there. Like, be careful. I'm always screaming tactics. A very quick example of tactics is you get a call for a burglary in progress. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 8th Street.
Right.
We are not Domino's. You do not need to pull up in front of 12348 8th Street.
Right.
Why not pull up at the 1000 block and walk up? That's tactics.
Right.
Those are the things that I try to tell them. You don't have to run into situations and you say, what can we do to, what knowledge can I impart? I'm trying to always, I'm not saying I'm the most wise
30 years
sergeant
of
or whatever,
experience
but
you are.
I try to impart patience. I try to impart being tactical, empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy goes such a long way in police
Mm-hmm.
department, in policing. Put yourself in
In
that
life.
in life. Thank you. In life in general.
Right.
So yeah, empathy, patience, being tactical. I mean, we could go on for days, but I try to share with them, and we watch. Like I said, police officers are very visual. We love to see things, so I put the videos on. We have training that we're supposed to read to them every day,
Right.
but they tune that out.
Wow.
I'm just going to be
Blah, blah,
honest
blah.
with you. They tune it, and yeah, it's stuff that they need to hear, but they already know it, so it's already been told to them 1,000 times. But when they see something, I'm like, okay, what would you do if you were in that situation? And I get them thinking. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we get a man with a gun in the parking lot. He's down there. How are we going to approach him? How are we going to defuse him? What if he runs? What if he starts shooting? What do you take cover? I just get them thinking. So
Right.
that's all.
Gabby, do you have anything for this officer? Sergeant, sorry. All right. Tanya.
We know Tanya does.
Yeah, I actually have two things.
Sure.
So one thing I wanted to go back to was the bias that Pat was talking about. And I know you said you have training.
We do get training on that.
But do
Extensive.
But I know you said you've worked in different districts in this area.
Sure.
And this is a very generalized question that you may not have an answer to, but just throwing it out there anyway. Is it possible that people can become biased through their years of experience in different?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because I'm thinking if you
have
work in a really
become-
high drug
I
area.
have become less sensitive to violence since I've been on this police department. My very first homicide, the guy died in my arms.
Oh, wow.
God.
It was 15th and U Street. He was a victim of a robbery, and he had been stabbed. And I went up to him, and I'm trying to, we're calling the ambulance for him and everything, and I'm trying to get information, trying to talk to him, keeping him alive. You never forget stuff like that. That was my first one. And I'm not saying I'm not empathetic to the violence in the city or the violence in general, in any capacity, the world, this city, but I could see, and I have seen many things. Like we could do another podcast about the stuff that I've seen, and I could tell stories. But I've seen things, and it has made me less sensitive, if you will, as saying I've gone to the scene of a homicide and then okay, where are we going for lunch? And I don't say that to make fun of death or to disrespect anyone who's lost their life. But you said, has it changed me? Absolutely, it's changed me, and it makes you hard, and you almost have to be to do this job. Like you can't take it home, and I think you're going at the angle of, well, are you dealing with a certain community? Does it make you less sensitive to that? Yeah, it does. It does. You get tired. You again, we're human. We're human. People don't think of police officers as human beings sometimes, but we have the same emotions that you. And as Patricia said, she knows herself. She said, "I can't do this." She's like, "I would have." I think I've told her many times. She said, "I would have shot somebody by it." And she's told me that many a times. And I'm like, "Patricia, you can't do that." And she said, "Well, I would." Well, you can't do that. So yeah, I mean,
Ron,
it does.
don't get a gun.
But you can't let that affect your judgment. And we are when I say training. We have training year round. Like they're okay, and we almost get tired of it. So I'm be honest, I got to go to sensitivity training. It's not me personally. The whole department has to go. We have a large LGBTQT community.
LGBTQIA.
Don't forget the plus.
And
PIA.
in the District of Columbia, we get training on that. We get training on mental health consumers. We get training on Hispanic community, the Asian community. We get training constantly. So
Well, that's good. That keeps you less biased.
Well, that, and we get implicit bias training, and it keeps you current. You can't police in 2023 the way you did in 1990. You can't police the way you did.
So this brings me to my next question. So my next question, I was listening to every talk. Do you think, how long have you been a police officer? How many years?
30 plus years.
30 plus
32.
years. Right. So you've been a police officer for quite a long time. How do you think the internet/technology has changed policing in the last 33 years? Because I know, like, back when you first started, it was a thing, but not now it's a thing.
It's the immediate it's the immediate information, and it's both positive and negative. We talked about the TikTok. Some of the videos that go viral are negative. Most of them are negative. Some of them are positive, but it's just the immediate information.